familiar his story really is. It is the same story as we saw back in 2008. I think there are a lot of similarities. It's going to make a lot of people mad to hear this. There's a lot of similarities to what those ESG promoting financial institutions do today. Because what did SBF do? He took client funds without their permission and used it to advance his agenda without telling them. Guess what the largest financial institutions in the world are doing today? They're using somebody else's money without their permission to advance their own agenda.
It's a wise point. I mean, these are people who are motivated by a lot of things, but one of them is the desire to accumulate as much money as possible. We know that, it's fine. But we have regulators who are supposed to keep that within the bounds, like Gary Gensler. Where are they?
They're busy focused on advancing those same agendas, right? Why are they propagating ESG disclosure rules when in fact they should be focused on preventing people from losing money? Right? You would think this was an objective. And the irony is they're going to use this as a catalyst to say, well, now we need to have greater purview over regulating cryptocurrencies or whatever, when in fact this is just a managerial task that's advancing a political agenda. And the more you advance a political agenda, the less you're doing the job that you're actually supposed to do. And you know it well, Tucker, that is the story of the administrative state, the SEC included, as we know it.
If you happened to catch last night's video, we were talking about the SEC and the protests and Gary Gensler not doing his job. And we also discussed some of the rule changes coming up this year that have been proposed that the SEC would like to implement on their books. Now, it just so happened by coincidence this afternoon, this video from Tucker Carlson when he interviews Vivek popped up on my queue, and it just reinforces exactly what I was going to lead into today with the conversation. It seems to me like the SEC has an issue right now with priorities. I don't know how much the SEC can have an effect on climate change right now, but it seems like they need to be refocused back into the direction of taking care of the retail investor. That's what the organization was set up to do, and to make sure that they prosecute for malpractice and keep an eye out for loopholes and the such. And as far as we can tell as retail investors, none of that is getting done. And so this picture is painted where it looks as though the SEC has taken up this crusade in order to save the planet, when that's not really in their job description. They are supposed to be protecting us. So we're going to talk about that, the omnibus. I'm going to check in on Ukraine real quick, and a whole bunch more. But before we get way too far ahead of ourselves,
cue the speeder.
This is the way.
I brought with me the Omni, 4,155 pages. When was it produced? In the dead of the night, 1:30 in the morning when it was released. The process stinks. It's an abomination. It's a no-good, rotten way to run your government. $6 trillion entity, and they want 24 hours to process this, and then they want to go forward.
good evening, beautiful people. Guys, what's going on? It is Wednesday, January 18th, 2023, and that was Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. He did not misspeak. That was a 4,000-page bill that they got in the dead of the night, which they had 24 hours to look over. Now, this bill was signed off by the House and Senate, and President Biden has already signed it into law. It's part of legislation. But when we started talking a while back about Jon Stewart's interview with Gensler from the SEC, and there being this joke about needs for donations in the coffee room because the SEC is so underfunded, I just can't help but imagine really how much of this spending bill could we have put towards SEC enforcement and made a big difference for retail. The way that these bills are given to Congress to review has got to be changed, first and foremost. But then going back to the bill itself and what's inside it, more aid for Ukraine. The spending law provides roughly $45 billion to help support Ukraine's efforts to defend herself against Russia's attack. $9 billion to Ukraine's military, $12 billion to the U.S. to replenish U.S. stocks of equipment sent to Ukraine, and also $13 billion for economic support to the Ukrainian government, which is the most corrupt in the world. Now, say what you will about Russia and Ukraine. I know some of you guys out there fall on one side and some of you fall on the other. Me personally, I think this war is about to be over, and I'm going to get back to that before the end of the video. But as I scroll down a little further here, this really got to me. Funding for January 6th attack prosecutions. Now, this is not January 6th of this year, not last year, but 2 years ago. They are still going to provide $2.6 billion for U.S. attorneys, which includes funding efforts to further support prosecutions related to the January 6th attack on the Capitol and domestic terrorism cases. The package also gives $11.3 billion to the FBI to investigate extremist violence, domestic terrorism. The measures are part of nearly $39 billion for the Justice Department. And you want to know how much the Justice Department is going to spend on going after the big banks or big funds? Probably nothing. The fact that they are even still talking about January 6th this late in the game shows their incompetence. We have known now for a long time that there were many things that went wrong that day, and a lot of them weren't on the people. A lot of those people are innocent who are in there, and the fact that these guys are willing to allocate $2.6 billion to a 2-year-old case that no one's even concerned or thinking about is asinine in my opinion. When all is said and done, and the Freedom Caucus releases all of the 14,000 hours of videotape from the Capitol that day, I think we're going to come up with that this is the biggest case of police entrapment in U.S. history, and the taxpayer should be refunded every penny that these assholes wasted on this partisan witch hunt. As we run up towards hitting the debt ceiling, when inflation hits 40-year highs and interest rates are on the rise, this is some of the last things that we should be spending money on right now. The most important thing is getting the American people back on track again. And none of this spending is helping Americans in any way, shape, or form. And it's a shame that the SEC can't even get a little tiny piece of that pie to do normal enforcement. But hopefully our message will be heard through these protests next week. All right, now, before we move on to Ukraine and Russia, I want to touch really quickly on the WEF that's going on right now in Davos, Switzerland, the World Economic Forum. Klaus Schwab back at it again in 2023. And Vivek was actually on Patrick Bet-David's podcast the other day too, and he started talking about BlackRock. I'm going to play a tiny little clip just so you know what I'm working on for tomorrow, and then we're going to get to Ukraine and get out of here. So Patrick is going to ask Vivek, why does Klaus Schwab and the WEF have so much sway over big money?
People buying into this guy. Why does he have so much influence over people?
So the answer comes down to money, actually. So it comes down to money.
But he doesn't have money. He
doesn't have money. No. It's not even this man. I mean, I gotta tell you something. I was asked by the Wall Street Journal to review a book that he wrote, in like early 2020 or 2021,
right,
a couple years ago. And through reading that book, I get the sense that he's just a sincere individual who has had this passion for 50 years, and in his own heart is just one man who has his views. They're views that I deeply disagree with. But he happens to have exercised influence because everyone else with money, 360 degrees surrounding him, had a use for that. Okay? Larry Fink is on the board of the World Economic Forum of Davos. Klaus Schwab doesn't have money, or not in a seriously large-scale way. Larry Fink controls 8 to 10 trillion dollars under the purview of one man. That's probably the largest.
He was. Larry being who you're talking about, BlackRock. Larry Fink.
Yeah. I mean that is probably the largest aggregation of capital under one man's authority.
No question.
In human history, more than the Dutch East India Company. Okay, and he's on the board of the World Economic Forum of Davos. So what does this accomplish? It is a front. That is what this is. This is a front.
All right. So We're going to come back tomorrow night. We're going to talk about that subject matter, specifically Larry Fink and the World Economic Forum. How does this all fit in? What is it a front for? And I think you guys are going to find the answer to be fascinating, as I did. All right, now, before I let you go, I want to talk about what's going on in Ukraine. Obviously, Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, was at Davos on a Zoom call, as he is with every other special engagement worldwide. Somehow he always pops in on a video chat. Zelensky urges allies to speed up push against Russia. Unfortunately, I don't think Ukraine has any shot left in this war. If you look up on this map, the peach area is the Donbass region that Russia has already taken. They've well established that region. That is what they originally wanted before the invasion. Bakhmut, you can see, is the battle that's going on right now. It is a major holding point for the Ukrainian army. This is their last line of defense before the entire country opens up, and the road to Kyiv is no longer defendable. Part of the region of Ukraine is their breadbasket, so this would be very easy for massive blitzkrieg-style tank movement. Like I said, this is their last fallback position. They have 100,000 troops on the Belarusian border, as well as another 100,000 outside of the Donbass region. They are planning a major counteroffensive. There's a good chance that this war could be over sooner than we think. I'm tired of seeing the Ukrainian people use as cannon fodder for our proxy war. So God willing, this will come to an end. But just something to keep your eye on, guys. I know you hear on the news every day that Russia is losing and Ukraine is winning. We're pouring money into a dumpster fire right now. But that's the administration. That's what people voted for, so that's what we got to live with, as my roommate says. I'm going to finish working on that WEF Larry Fink video for tomorrow. Tomorrow night, we will be going live 100%. I got to get on and talk to you guys, and I'm going to go answer all of the comments from last night's videos or yesterday's video, depending on when this gets uploaded. As always, guys, thank you for all the likes, the views, the comments, my new subscribers, my OGs. I appreciate each and every one of you. We are here to break the wheel. This is Ape Nation. I'm the Massalorian, and I'm out.